What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back. And just like that, the NBA draft has came. The NBA draft has went. So y'all know your boy got to come in, give y'all my thoughts, opinions, and feelings about everything that happened over the draft. Over the last 2 days, I got to get familiarized with the draft being 2 days and not just a one-day thing. I will say I don't know what word to use because disappointment feels like a bit much. But I definitely felt like even with some of the moves that we got during the draft and the Denny trade before the draft, it still felt like there was some room for a little bit more movement and a little bit more chaos to happen, especially in a draft like this that is a weaker draft. Y'all know I've defended this draft. I've talked highly of certain elements of this draft, but it is a weaker draft in comparison to other drafts that we've seen as far as top end talent. My biggest gripe with a lot of the media or a lot of attention that this draft got was that a lot of people who don't do the draft work was going out of their way to call it the weakest draft ever. We have to give these prospects a chance because, like we've seen in previous years, if you study the draft, they've called a lot of draft classes weak that ended up being really, really solid and really good. So that was my whole gripe, but I cannot deny that the top end talent does not match previous years, which is okay. Nobody's fault. Nobody control it. It has to happen. Somebody has to be the weaker draft class. It's just the way that it is. But overall thoughts about the actual draft in itself. There was a lot of things that I expected. I will say that. I had a lot of picks that were accurate in my mock draft all over the place. But there were also some things where I was like, wow. And to start it, it's the Pistons. I would say one of the more surprising picks was the fact that Ron Holland II went five. And when I was thinking about how to grade teams or my winners, my losers, and just overall opinions and thoughts, the Detroit Pistons were one that was polarizing for me. And that's why I wanted to start with them because on one hand, I love everything about the pick when I got a chance to hear them speak about it. When the Detroit Pistons took Ron Holland and they explained the pick, they basically said when they worked him out and when they reviewed him and did their due diligence on Ron Holland, he checked nearly every single box, which was super impressive to them as a teenager to check as many boxes as he did. And the one box he didn't check was shooting, which, as we all know, they just went out and hired I forget his name off the top of my head, Vincent, I believe, the infamous shooting coach who worked previously with the Pelicans and did a lot of good work with them, specifically, notably, Lonzo Ball, like reworking his entire shot and getting him to be a 40% three-point shooter after the start of Lonzo's career. We saw those shooting numbers at the free throw line, at the three-point line. It just wasn't there at all. So for him to rework that shot just Lonzo alone is a significant hope for a lot of Detroit fans. So I love that thought process of saying, hey, we got a guy that we worked out, we seen, he blew us away, and the one thing he needs work on, we just went and spent a lot of money on to bring to our organization to not only help him, but a couple of the other prospects that we have. So with that thinking, I really like that pick. I'm a big believer in drafting guys that you fall in love with and just betting on them. You know what I mean? Like, if it's anything with the draft, you got to go for what you believe, what you see, and what you value. Paying attention to mock drafts or what everybody else is saying, I think would be a big mistake for teams and has been a big mistake for teams. That's why I've always said I love when the Suns went out and got Cam Johnson. You know what I mean? Or when the Mavs went out and got Derek Lively. You just got to go get certain guys that you love and not really care about what anybody else is saying. And I think Detroit on that front, I really appreciate it. But then I looked at a team like Detroit, and then I looked at a team like Houston, and I also looked at a team like Memphis. And I thought to myself, when you talk about a draft class like this, where it's so unpredictable, there's not as much value. There is value in some areas, depending on what it is, but it's not as much value as we've probably seen in previous years. You have to find ways to be creative to really get a bang for your buck. And so what I mean by that is I felt like Houston taking Reed Shepard was not a bad pick at all. I think Reed Shepard is like a lot of guys who went early in this draft where he has a high floor but a lower ceiling. I think he's a safe bet. Three in a typical year is probably not where Reed Shepard is going. But again, it's also Houston when you add the context of where they are and their rebuild and how much talent and young talent that they have. They didn't really need to try to take some swing for upside. They've done that in the last few drafts. And this was a draft for them to just get a guy who they think is going to be a really good pro basketball player. And Reed Shepard checks the box to be that. But when you think about the other teams and where and how they selected, I looked at the Houston Rockets as a team that could have manipulated this draft in a little bit more of a favorable way. And I'm saying all of this as a guy who wasn't in a war room, that doesn't work in their front office. Maybe they was bringing the phones off the hook and trying to get something to happen and it just wasn't there. But when I look at the way that the draft ended up being, there was an avenue for the Rockets to potentially trade back and still get Reed Shepard or somebody that they really liked. I don't believe that they looked at this draft and was like, we are obsessive over Reed Shepard. There's no way we leave this draft without him. I'm definitely sure that they like him. But I definitely look at them and say, hey, the Grizzlies made it known how bad they wanted Donovan Clingan. And they were trying their hardest to go get him. They were trying their hardest. And when I look at the Houston Rockets and I look at the Detroit Pistons and I look at the two players they picked, I'm like, why didn't you trade with them? And again, I do want to give them some grace by saying I'm obviously speaking with hindsight, but Ron Holland was going to be there, I believe. I truly believe that if the Detroit Pistons said, hey, Memphis, you want Clingan, let's make something work. Especially when you think about the state of the Detroit Pistons. They're a team that needs a lot. You know what I mean? They need a lot. They need this pick that they just had. They also need some proven players to come in and help them in some areas. Extremely, extremely desperate in some shooting. And I feel like the Memphis Grizzlies had a guy. You know what I mean? A Luke Kennard. Again, and I'm just speaking off the hip. I don't know how much Memphis values him. I don't know if Detroit called and tried to make something happen. I'm not sure. But I would just have loved to see a couple of other teams be a little bit more aggressive in finding ways to use this draft class in a way where you can leave with a lot more than what you left with. Because I believe that if you trade back as Detroit with Memphis, Ron Holland is still there for you at 9. And if he's not, you're still walking away with something that you probably like just as much as Ron Holland. You know what I mean? Like, that's just my thought process. I look at the Spurs. They were not taking Ron Holland. They were going to take Stephon Castle. His suit matched the Spurs colors. That made me feel like him and the Spurs had a conversation of like, we're taking you, brother. At 5, you would have swapped with the Grizzlies, who would have took Donovan Clingan. The Hornets didn't trade back with Memphis because they wanted Tajon, which they got at 6. At 7, the Trailblazers are really your only threat there to take Ron Holland if you trade back to 9. Because I feel like if the Blazers weren't going to get Clingan, they were going to go wing. And that's Modest Buzelis, that's Cody Williams, that's Ron Holland. One of those 3 guys are going to get picked. That's your real only threat. We saw it at San Antonio. At 8, they wanted Tajon. Once Charlotte took him, they were obviously going to make this trade with the Timberwolves, who took Rob Dillingham. And then, boom, back at 9, you now potentially, depending on what the Trailblazers do, you still can get Ron Holland. If not, Cody Williams, Modest Buzelis. I think any of those 3 you walk out with, if you're Detroit, you're happy with. You know what I mean? Maybe Ron Holland was your top 1 out of those 3, but you're still left with something that I think has some bit of an upside. I believe the same thing with the Houston Rockets. You know, when I look at the way that the draft shaped out, Reed Shepard potentially could have been there for you too. I'll break it down the same way. At 3, the Grizzlies would have took Clingan. Spurs would have took Castle. Pistons would have took Holland. Hornets take Tajon. The Blazers at 7, again, they maybe go get another win. They maybe now get Modest Buzelis. They maybe now get Cody Williams. I do not think the Blazers take another guard in Reed Shepard. Having Scoot Henderson, having Anthony Simons, having Shaedon Sharpe, I don't see why they would have taken Reed Shepard. So I would project them to have taken a wing. And then at 8, the Spurs do the trade with the with the Timberwolves. Rob Dillingham goes there. And then at 9, if you're the Rockets, you potentially still have Reed Shepard. Potentially. So when I talk about losers and winners and how I'm calculating, again, I like some of these picks. I think a lot of teams did really well. But I look at teams like the Pistons and the Rockets, and I just wish they were a little bit more aggressive in a pursuit to really manipulate this draft and leverage it for a little bit more of a favorable upside for them. As I continue to talk about losers, and I'm only recapping day 1 right now. We'll get to day 2, but day 1 is really the day. The Grizzlies, man. I mean, at 9, the same philosophy with them. I know how hard you tried to move up to get Donovan Clingan. Obviously, the Hornets didn't want to do that because they were going to lose their guy, which I respect and understand. But Zach Edey, when you talk about guys being there, Memphis, you could have traded back. You could have traded back and still got Edey. I do not think any of these teams drafting after you were going to take Edey. I don't think the Jazz would have. I don't think the Bulls would have. I don't think the Thunder would have. I damn sure know the Kings wouldn't have. The Blazers would not have, since they had already got Klingon. Miami Heat, it just doesn't seem like that's something that they would do. The 76ers, absolutely not. The only real threat is maybe 17 with the Lakers. Maybe. So I just wish that they were a little bit better with their pick. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's the 9th overall pick. A lot of teams wanted to move up and get certain guys, especially as they fail. And Zach Edey is not really to pile up on him. Yeah, I do think Zach Edey has a little bit of a room to maybe do something. I think he can contribute at some way. At the least, he's going to be a 7 for a body that can rebound. But I am concerned about, how much he's going to be able to play on an NBA floor. I am concerned with the utilage that they're going to have, because you have to understand the way that he played at Purdue offensively. NBA team is not going to prioritize his post-ups like that. They're not taking the ball out of Ja Morant's hands or Desmond Bane's hands in order to give Zach Edey more post touches. The pace of running up and down on the NBA floor, the more space, the pick and roll coverages with elite guys and guards they're dangerous, man. They're dangerous. And like I said, it's not to write Zach Edey off completely, because when you're that big at that size, there's probably something you can contribute to. But I just feel like at 9, that was a little rich for me. Some of these other picks, I understand why you take the risk. A lot of people didn't understand the Hornets pick, but at least the Hornets pick, there's some extreme upside. Zach Edey is an older prospect, and there's not much upside there. You kind of know what you're getting. You just have to hope that it translates in a way that is a little bit more than a backup center, I guess. Or even if you get backup center production from Zach Edey, I guess you're not mad. But at 9, is that what you're drafting for? Are you drafting for a backup center at 9? Or do the Memphis Grizzlies really think that this could be a starting center in the league one day? You know what I mean? So that's my thought process with the Grizzlies. I just feel like that was, again, way more to work around. I wouldn't have minded Khalil Ware there, because, again, that's a 7-footer. Who can block some shots, who has some mobility, and again, there's some upside there. And maybe you still go into free agency and get a center. You don't have to depend on Khalil Ware playing extreme minutes from day one. I wouldn't have mind trading back as Memphis and getting Yves Missy, a Clint Capella 2.0, in my opinion. Like, there were other options outside of taking Edey at 9. That was just a little much for me. Some of the teams that I did like and I did enjoy, when you talk about two teams in a similar situation, I look at 16 and I look at 17 with the Lakers and Philadelphia 76ers. These are two playoff teams who are looking to, continue to get better. And if you're using this draft class outside of the lottery, I don't think it gets any more better than those two selections. You look at Jared McCain, and it's very reminiscent of when the Philadelphia 76ers were able to draft Tyrese Maxey at like 20 or 21 or something like that. It was outside of the lottery. And it was a later pick, and they hit gold on that. And I feel like Jared McCain, not that I'm saying he's going to be Tyrese Maxey, but it's the same type of thing where they were able to get a really good guard who thrives with shooting the basketball from the perimeter in a lot of different ways. Jared McCain is a catch-and-shoot guy. He's a pull-up guy. I think he's underrated in the pick and roll, and he's a guy that showed us at Duke how good he is at adapting. That is a team at Duke that, kind of like Philly, already had an established group of guards. I'm comparing the group of guards to an established Tyrese Maxey. Maxey by himself in Philadelphia is basically guards, plural, because he's going to play 37 minutes a game. But Jared McCain can adapt. He's going to be a guy that can back up Maxey. He's going to be a guy that can share the floor with Maxey. He's going to be a guy that's going to be able to knock down shots off of the attention that a pick and roll between Maxey and Embiid generates, or just an Embiid post up that commands all 5 people to be giving him their attention. He's going to be able to be a shot maker for them, and he has a part of his game that we didn't get to see in college that I think at the NBA level they'll be able to tap into a little bit more, which is putting the ball in his hands, let him run the show, pick and roll, playmaking, and different things like that. That is a very good pick at the 16th mark when you talk about value valuable picks. Just from a pure valuable standpoint, that is a home run pick in my opinion. I look at the Lakers in the same way. My biggest gripe with the Lakers in this pick is that previous years, because they have LeBron and these teams have a big picture mentality, the rookies have kind of got lost in the shuffle. And I hope that with JJ Redick being the coach now, they understand that they may have something here. Dalton Knecht is an older prospect. He should be ready to play, and he gives them something that they need, which is shooting. I believe he's a scorer who can shoot, but I think his calling card to get on the floor early in his NBA career is going to be able to shoot the basketball. And we know playing with LeBron James, playing with Anthony Davis, the attention that they command, especially when they're going off their 1-2 punch, he's going to have a lot of opportunities and a lot of looks. The Lakers over the last few years have had a lot of guys on the floor and a lot of corner or wing situations with kickouts, and they couldn't convert. If Dalton Knecht can make those shots early, he'll be able to get a lot of rotational minutes and a lot of trust will be given, and then we'll be able to see the rest of his game on the NBA floor. But again, when you talk about the value and what he was last year and what he is as a prospect, Dalton Knecht is a really good pick for a playoff team like the LA Lakers. And I just really want them to play him and allow him to have an opportunity, because we didn't see a lot from Max Christie over his Laker tenure. We didn't see anything really from Jalen Hood-Schifino last year. Do not allow Dalton Knecht to fall into that same category as a guy that has some type of potential, some type of upside, and you just don't play him. He can be somebody that can help that Laker team. Another pick that I loved, probably one of my favorite picks in the entire draft, is the Kings getting Devin Carter at 13. I mean, when you talk about what the Kings are, how this roster is shaping up, and you talk about needs, they needed a player like Devin Carter. They were on the market trying to acquire a player like Devin Carter not that long ago. They were a team that called about Alex Caruso. Devin Carter fits the mold of an Alex Caruso type of player, a Josh Hart type of player, a Bruce Brown, one of those guys in a smaller frame that really gets everything out of his size. He rebounds well. He averaged like 9 rebounds a game as a guard. Rebounding most of the time translates to the NBA level. He's a nosy defender. He doesn't mind doing all of the dirty work things. He can make a play as a guard. He can knock down a shot. He can finish at the rim and get out in transition. He's going to be a guy that in a couple of years, they're going to be like, wow, he is extremely valuable to this Sacramento King playoff team. Like, he's doing all of the little things that are helping them win basketball games. So I love this pick. This is a guy that, like, I thought he would have gone earlier. I had him in my mock draft going to the Kings at 13, but I understood that there was a world where, hey, somebody else fell in love with him and took him, because, again, the NBA is starting to realize how important these guys are that do all of these little things. That's why Caruso is one of the most sought-after guys. Bruce Brown, after they won a championship in Denver, was one of the most sought-after guys, and the Pacers gave him a bunch of money. Josh Hart is one of the most beloved role players in the NBA because they do a little bit of everything, and they're willing and able to do whatever the team needs in that particular night. And I think the Sacramento Kings, as good of a roster that they have, they've really been missing that type of player. It seemed like they were trying to get Keon Ellis opportunity last year to kind of be that guy. He ended up being a really good perimeter defender, but I think Devin Carter can be that and a little bit more. And this, again, at 13, and you talk about need, is a really good pick. Some other things that I liked, the Blazers. I think the Blazers won the overall night of day one just because they were able to go out and get Denny Avdia from the Wizards. And when you talk about the way that roster was shaping up during their rebuild, they lacked a wing, a young wing that can come in and fit what they're doing. He's only 23. They gave up the 14th pick and a future pick. I'm okay with that because they have an abundance of picks anyway. And again, they needed a wing. They had so many guards. They have a lot of centers. They now have 3 centers with Klingon, Aiden, and Robert Williams. You expect Jeremy Grant to be traded at some point. That now gives you a replacement for him, is a young replacement for him is Denny. And then you have the trio of guards is Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, and Shaedon Sharpe. You also have some other guys that I think, in another year or two of rebuilding, you'll be able to see what these guys can be in, like a Jabari Walker, or Tumani Kamara, or Chris Murray. So I really like the direction that they're going. And again, to be able to get Denny and then add Donovan Klingon, man. I think that they won draft night one. That was an incredible pickup. So now their rebuild is looking like Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Shaden Sharp, Jeremy Grant, Donovan Clingan. But in the meantime, you have Aiden. What I like about Aiden is Donovan Clingan played 11 minutes a game in his freshman year in that first national championship run. The second national championship run, Donovan Clingan played 22 minutes per game. So as good as Donovan Clingan is, as much as we love him, his durability is something that you have to watch and ease into because he's dealt with the foot problems before. And when we talk about somebody at the size of 7 foot plus, the feet injuries are extremely concerning. So you definitely don't want to draft him and try to throw him into the fire of being a starting center playing 33 or 35 minutes a game. So to be able to have Aiden there as a bridge until he's ready and, built up to be one of those centers, if he ever will be, you have Aiden for now. And then you also still have Robert Williams, who I don't know, could be another trade piece or trade chip or something like that. So I love what the Blazers did. I look at the Chicago Bulls at 11, not just because I'm from Chicago, not because we rock with Matas Buzelis, not because of that connection, but just when you look at the prospect of what Matas Buzelis is, I mean, to get him at 11, the Bulls didn't have to make a trade. They didn't have to move around or do anything like that. They were able to get a guy who was one of the biggest faces in this draft class a year or two ago. When you go back and look at the old mock drafts that were like not even a year ago, his name is going to be at the forefront to be the potential first overall pick. And whenever you're able to get that type of player at 11, you love it. Because, I mean, one year can't really change the entire trajectory of what a player is. It definitely can change some of the perception in the draft. This 1 year, this 1 year of college, 1 year of G League, it can definitely change how evaluators view you. But I mean, he had a tough year shooting the basketball. If that was just a fluky year and he's going back to being a shooter that we've seen him be during his upbringing that got his name at the national level, then again the Bulls just got a top consensus pick at 11 and had to do nothing for it. Just kind of fell in their lap. So I love that. Obviously, we love the story of him being able to come back home and stay home with the Chicago Bulls. That's every kid's dream. So I love that for the Bulls. The Wizards, I wasn't a fan of them trading Denny, obviously. But after the fact of them trading Denny, you just look at the way that they worked the draft. They did what I think a lot of teams in their position should have done. This is the type of draft class where everybody is calling it weaker than other ones. Everybody's saying this and that about it. There's not extreme value. This is a draft where you could take advantage if you're a Wizards team. They don't have much talent. Their number one priority should be to just accumulate young talent and try to see what they can develop and cultivate over the years of rebuilding this unit. And that's exactly what they did. They got Sarr at 2. They went and got Bub Carrington at 13 or 14. 14 through the Blazers trade. And then you traded with my Knicks to move up to 24, and you got Keyshawn George. So you're able to get a front court player, a guard, and a wing in this one draft. And these all are young guys with nice upside. And you just swing. And if Keyshawn George turns out to be something, phenomenal. If Bub Carrington turns out to be something, phenomenal. All you did was just get involved. So I look at some teams like the Nets. This is a draft to me where the Nets should have just got involved. You have Cam Johnson, you have Dorian Finney-Smith, you already, going into the rebuild. Just have a fire sale and find a way to get in the back end of this draft and take a chance with somebody. There's a lot of young talent in here that you could have just took a chance on. You know what I mean? Like Isaiah Collier out of USC. The Nets could have just took a chance on him. He was another guy that was a projected top pick coming into the college basketball season. He didn't have the year he thought he was going to have at USC. You know what I mean? Turned the ball over a lot. But he did have some strong flashes. Why not just take a chance? And granted, Utah did. Utah found a way to get involved in that. But when you have somebody with that type of resume and they just didn't have 1 year, a couple months of their career just didn't go their way, that doesn't write me completely off. You know what I mean? That doesn't write me completely off. And I can get involved in the back half of this draft in the 20s. That probably wouldn't cost Brooklyn much to get in the 20s. You know what I'm saying? But if they did want to get up in the teens or something, it probably would have cost them one of their players that they already are going to give away. So I would have just came in and got involved and just took a swing. This is the draft to do it, especially at the back of it. So I just wish a lot more teams would have came through with that type of mentality that the Wizards had in the Wizards position. The good teams, they don't have to really do all of that because they're already good. But if you're bad and you need talent and you lack talent, this is a draft where you just take as many swings as possible. So shout out to the Wizards for doing that. Nets, I look at as a loser for not finding a way to get involved at all in that first round. I'm also looking at the Bucks. Again, the Bucks pick is kind of polarizing for me because AJ Johnson does have upside. There are some picks and players that in situations where the Bucks will need some upside players, but the Bucks also need ready now players. And there are some there were some ready now players that I think that they just passed up on. I look at a guy like Kevin McCullough. I look at Ryan Dunn. Hell, I look at Bayer Shireman. You know what I mean? There's so many guys that I just feel like the Bucks could have maybe got at 23 that would have gave them some type of, production from day one. They are going for it. They're a team that are really, really going for it. They're not planning for the future. They're not doing both. No, this is a championship team. They have Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, and Chris Middleton on one team. So I scratched my head when I was able to see that the Knicks got Kevin McCullough at 56 in a trade with the Suns when you have established playoff teams that are like trying to do things. So you don't really have to care about Kevin McCullough's ceiling because it's like, what can he do right now? Oh, he can defend and make some corner shots. He went to a prestigious school like Kansas. Well coached, played with some NBA talent. Let me try to bring him in. You know what I mean? Like that surprised me that the Bucks went and got AJ Johnson. You know what I mean? Extremely young, extremely raw, going to have to be extremely patient, but he does have some extreme upside if he's able to put it all together. But it just seems like a pick that maybe, I don't know, maybe the Wizards would have done, or the Jazz, or, you know what I mean? A team like that seemed more primed to draft a AJ Johnson versus a Bucks team. I definitely thought the Bucks were going to walk away with a guy that played more than 1 year of college basketball. I thought they were going to get a guy that was like 20 or 21, damn near 22 or something like that. So that surprised me, and I feel like they could have maybe got more. Now, of course, in a few years, if AJ Johnson turns out to be a monster, then, I shut up and the Bucks show me why they are the professionals. And other teams I'm looking at and I got written down, I love the thing that the Suns did. I was a big fan of the Suns day 2. But more so on day 1, what I loved about them is they got my boy Ryan Dunn at 28 because they did a trade with the Nuggets. They traded the Nuggets 22, and the Nuggets were able to get Deron Holmes, who they loved. And then for that trade, the Suns were able to get some other picks just by trading down 6 spots and getting the guy that they were going to select at 22 anyway. To me, that is the epitome of what I was saying about some of these other teams like the Grizzlies, the Rockets, and the Pistons who didn't trade back. You know what I mean? Like, take advantage of a team saying, we really want this guy. We don't know if he's going to be there. You want to do a trade with us? We'll give you 2 future first-round picks, a pick in this year, and we'll give you our pick that we have. We'll swap those picks. You essentially got 3 extra picks for moving down 6 spots and still getting the guy you wanted. The Knicks did the same thing. The Knicks were able to trade with the Washington Wizards. Wizards say, hey, we want Keyshawn George. The Knicks say, all right, here you go. Give us a pick in the second round. Then they also did the trade with the Wizards, where it was like, with the Thunder. And the Thunder gave them 5 second-round picks. And then the next day, the Knicks used a couple of those picks and was able to get Tyler Kolek in the second round. And then they also was able to get my boy Kevin McCullough. So it's just like those examples are why I'm looking at other teams like, man, why wouldn't you want more aggressive? And then the last thing I'll say about day 1 specifically is shout out to the Pelicans. I think Yves Missi is a really, really, really good pick. And as far as losers, I will talk slightly about them. The Hawks, in a certain way, are a loser in this draft, and it has nothing to do with Zachary Richardson. I like Zachary Richardson. Since I was introduced to his game, I've been a fan of him. Never in a million years, over the last 2.5 years, I would say that I think he was going to be a number 1 pick. I liked him because I thought he would be a nice wing that somebody was going to find at like 11 or 9 or something like that. But over this past year, he obviously did his thing and climbed up the ranks. The reason the Hawks are losers is really nothing to do too much with them. But I'll add the context. This is a year where you were able to land the number 1 overall pick. It's the year following Victor Wembanyama being the number 1 overall pick. And the year before Victor Wembanyama was the number 1 overall pick, it was Paolo Banchero, right? And then next year, this is a draft class that seems to have a lot more top-end talent to where even I don't think Cooper Flagg is the downright number 1 overall pick. I think you got AJ and Ace, and you know what I mean. There's a group of guys who are going to fight and have take the number one pick by the horns and say, I am him. You get what I'm saying? But there's going to be some type of conversation. The conversation around this year's number one pick is just kind of because there's not an established guy who said it's mine. That's already an L. The second thing is Alex Sarr, who dominated the headlines of being the consensus number one pick for most of the draft process, basically said he wasn't going to you guys. He declined working out with y'all and kind of positioned himself in a way where y'all would be fools to draft him. Nobody is drafting a guy that clearly doesn't want to be there. That's just not, if guys express that they don't want to be there, but they work out and they try to say all of the things, then teams are usually like, okay, we'll just take them. But not working out, just downright refusing to, deal with y'all, that's a strong sign. So that kind of hurts them also there too. And then that hurts the value of potentially moving the pick. They couldn't even say, hey, Wizards, y'all love Alex Sarr? What's up? Y'all can get him. Y'all can get him for sure at the number one pick if y'all just give us a little this. They didn't even have the leverage to do that. They kind of just got punked and had to take Zachary Richardson, which I think they like. I like him, but he's more of a high floor guy versus high ceiling. And I think when you have the number one overall pick, you always want to be able to go and get a guy that has a high ceiling, whether it's because of his skill set, whether it's because of his physical traits like a Zion Williamson. You want to have some chance and some high chance of having somebody that can shake up the entire organization and put you in a different spot. Zachary Richardson, as much as I like him, I more so look at him as a guy that's going to help you, but I don't know if he changes the complete culture and landscape of the Atlanta Hawks. I hope he does, because I want every one of these prospects to exceed all of our expectations. I want all of these guys to be the best versions of themselves that they can be. But just going off what I know about his game and what I've seen, I think he has a higher floor than a higher ceiling. And for that, the Hawks, with the added context, nothing to do with them, nothing to do with Zachary Richardson, but just the circumstance that they were in, it kind of put them in a tough spot, man. It really, really did. And then Donovan Clingan got traction to be the number one pick. He plays a position that they already got taken care of. They weren't going to do that. So it was just a tough year for them. When I look at day two, and I'll go through day two a lot quicker, it's hard for me to not call my Knicks a winner, as I already spoke about it. We were able to get Tyler Kolek and Kevin McCullough Jr. out of Kansas, two guys that should be ready to play and contribute right away. Not sure if they'll need to, but if they ever do need to, for whatever reason, because injuries do exist, they are going to be some nice additions and some nice pickups. I'm also a fan of the Bucks making up and getting Tyler Smith. Again, another young guy who has some upside, but I like his game a lot, and I think he may be more ready to play from day one than A.J. Johnson. Like Tyler Smith could probably surprise some people and be able to find some rotational minutes. We'll see. Maybe not, but we'll see. And then the Pacers, Johnny Furphy as a second-round pick. Nice value there. I feel like the Thunder, I should have talked about them earlier. They did nothing wrong in this draft. Like every single pick that the Thunder made was extremely good. They got A.J. Mitchell. They got Nikola Topic. The Thunder are just a team that drafts really, really, really well. The Timberwolves, I forgot to talk about. Trading for Rob Dillingham was incredible. Especially when they came out and said, hey, we need what he does. We need shot creation, potentially off the bench as well. The only way we can get that was by trading for him. We don't have a way or avenue to do it in free agency. We don't want to trade any of our guys to get it via the trade market. We have to go and get it in draft, and boom, we did it, damn it. And I think that is hats off. That is brilliant GM, and that is brilliant ways to team build. And I love that. But, yeah, I think they did well. The Thunder did well. The Suns did good in day two, getting Oso Iguodala. And they also had got somebody else, and Ryan Dunn. And then who else did the Suns get? Am I tripping? Or did the Suns get one more person? I can't remember. Maybe they signed somebody. Maybe they signed somebody that I'm thinking about as a free agent on a two-way or something like that. The 76ers getting Bona out of UCLA. The Hawks being able to get Nikola Jurisic. He is nice. That's a really good a pick there. Clippers getting involved and getting Cam Christie. They got the Christies in LA. There was a lot of good stuff happening in day two. Even the Knicks, we also got Ariel Hukporti. So it was a really good, active, and busy day two. I really liked it. I wish I would have seen KJ Simpson go somewhere a little bit more established. I think the Hornets just have so many damn guards. They have him, Nick Smith Jr., LaMelo, Trey Mann. There's just a lot going on there. Grizzlies, Jalen Wells. That could be really, really, really fun. That could be really well. And then the Pistons also getting Bobby Clinton, I like as well. Kyle Filipowski situation, going to the Jazz and hearing all of the stuff with his girlfriend and all of that. I don't know, just weird stuff, and that's going to be something interesting to see how that continues to fold out with his family and his brother and mom speaking out on Twitter about all of that. Overall, another really good draft. As far as just the experience, I just love the draft. I love doing the research. I love looking at players and trying to project what they're going to be, figure out where they're going to go, and then thinking about what I would do if I was a GM or a talent evaluator. And to see everything work out from day one to now is always refreshing. The Timberwolves also got Terrence Shannon Jr. Oh, and the Thunder, their other pick was Dylan Jones. So, yeah, a lot of good drafting here. My boy, it's a lot of good guys that we met. Tristan DeSilva went to the Magic. Jalen Tyson to the Cavs. Ryan Dunn to the Suns. Our boy Modest back home. Shout out to my boy Rob Dillingham with a lot of good stuff happened here. Draft class, meeting them, talking to them, a lot of good young men in this draft. So we're obviously rooting for them. And again, we're a couple weeks away from Summer League, and I'm excited for that as well. So surprises, I guess I'll say before I wrap up, Khalil Ware going to the Miami Heat was a big surprise for me. Big surprise for me. Jacoby Walter being able to fall to 19 to the Raptors was an amazing valuable pick. My boy Pacome Daddier fell to my Knicks. That was like insane to watch and witness. And then, I did not think Johnny Furphy would fall down to a second-round pick. I didn't think Filipowski would turn into a second-round pick. I didn't think Kevin McCullough would fall down to 56. It's just a lot of crazy things. But, man, that's my thoughts, feelings, opinions about the draft. The draft is done. And before we know it, not even before we know it, it's time to lock in on next year's draft. That's what I would say. A lot of y'all are enjoying this process. Y'all watch me and what I'm saying, and I see what y'all saying in the comments. Y'all doing y'all draft research, and it's good to see y'all have y'all opinions and different things like that. I would tell y'all, if you like the process, you love all of this, go ahead and start getting yourself ready for the next draft, the 2025 draft. You already know a few names. You know what I'm saying? You'll see where they're going to college, and you can already start to try to figure out strengths, weaknesses, the size, comparisons, or different things that you want to see in college. And then you monitor that throughout the college season. And then before you know it, you get to the draft, and you're like, damn, that's the best draft I did because you were on it 14 months before it got cracking. So I appreciate y'all. As I've always been saying, stay locked in here all off season. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. A lot of stuff is about to go down in the NBA world. So make sure you tuned in and locked in here 24/7. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all next time. I'm out. Peace.